This is a presentation on the schedule management. Schedule management includes the processes required to ensure the timely completion of the project. One of the tools that the project manager uses for this purpose is the project schedule. Time is money, and in this presentation we're going to show you some of the techniques that are available to help us manage time so that we keep the budget in control. Here's our basic process where we identify our inputs and our outputs, and the process to planning, doing, checking, adapting, and replanning our schedule. Let's see that in more detail. The plan step defines the schedule. We determine the sequence of the activities, we estimate the durations, and we define the critical path. On the do, we publish the schedule and make sure that all the groups assigned to work on the project have a copy of the schedule. In the check step, we monitor the schedule. We update it, progress, and we identify issues. In the adapt, we update and make modifications to the schedule based on the approved changes or issues caused by the delays, and we distribute then the updated schedule to the team. Once we have the complete work breakdown structure with the codes and the description, we include to each one of those activities what we estimate are going to be the duration of the activities. So we usually add this extra column where each activity will have an estimated duration. There are three estimating techniques. Analogous estimating means that we use information from a similar project, similar activities, and we use them to the project. Parametric means that we use some standards, like how much time does it take to specific activity, how many hours or how many days to do a specific training, and we use that to produce all the information we need to establish our schedule. And then we also can use the PERT estimating, which is a technique or a formula that takes some numbers from people that are producing some of that information, and we use all of those values and we use this formula. We take the most optimistic value, we take the most likely or the average, they multiply by 4, and the most pessimistic value. We add all those three and we divide it by 6. This is a value that represents a better judgment on what will be the duration of a specific activity. Once we do that and we have now our duration, we identify the resources in our team. This is an important step because it helps us identify the owners for each one of the activities that we have in the project. By identifying the resources, we also identify how much time they're going to be assigned to work on that specific activity. So here in this example, I have a team represented by these letters A, B, C, and D, and they've been assigned to the different activities, each one at 100%, meaning that the project manager, the coordinator, the technical managers, and the support are assigned to each one of these activities at 100%. So what usually that happens is that when I use a tool that could be Microsoft Project or Microsoft Excel, and we plot those numbers, we end up with this type of graphs. What these graphs are telling me is that one resource is being used up and then down, which follows the normal distribution of work in a project. But notice that for a specific amount of time, we see that we have months 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months, that the amount of time that people can do in a month mostly will be 160 hours. A lot of them are exceeding based on the original assignments we gave them. And we know that that is very difficult to ask people to work more than 100%. So the idea that these charts is that they help you identify those areas where you know that you're over allocating people to specific activities. With certain tools and some techniques, you can manage that and create now a more leveled graph where your resources are still going to be used, but at less than the required limit that we have on the project. So that way you make sure that you don't have big gaps of people doing a lot of work, or areas where people are not being asked to work at 100, or maybe they're working only at 50%. Another tool that we use in the schedule management is the network diagram, and this is a representation of the work that helps us also look at the dependencies and the sequence in which each one of the tasks or activities in the project will happen. The network diagram basically uses boxes to represent the task and the arrows that show the dependencies. The dependencies are telling me when something happens, when they need to happen, and how they start in the flow of a project. Like task 3 cannot begin until both task 1 and task 2 have been completed, or that task 4 is a predecessor to task 5 and a successor to task 2. In the network diagram, there is both a start and an end point to the project, and that is important because it helps you connect all those activities from the beginning all the way to the end. We'll have a presentation on our next slide about how we use the network diagram to identify the critical path of the project. Another tool that we use in schedule management is the Gantt chart. This is a simple representation of the duration on an activity in a calendar. So we can have a calendar with specific dates, and we have a list of all our activities, and these bars represent the duration of that activity, and they represent also when they will start and when they will end. This is a graphical representation useful to visualize how each one of those activities are happening over time, when they are happening, when they need to start and when they need to end, so that the team and the people working on the project have an understanding about how the project work is being distributed. Thank you for your attention to this presentation.